Do you know what the difference is between these two brushes? This is the Mobius 0.2 and this is the Mobius 0.3. Clearly, anybody who looks at this is going to say, well, the cup is smaller on the 0.2 and and the 0.2 also has a air control valve. Speaking of air control valve, it is absolutely completely buttery smooth. So if you take them apart, they are going to be pretty much the same. They're very high quality. Now the next thing, when I ask that question, people are going to assume, they're going to say, well, that's got a 0.2 nozzle in it and this has a 0.3 nozzle in it. And they would be wrong. It may come as a surprise to you, but many manufacturers have been using the 0.3, 0.2, 0.5, 0.15 terminology pretty loosely. It doesn't necessarily always correlate to the nozzle size. And I know that sounds very confusing, but it initially started that way, and then they started naming them those sizes based upon what they're designed for, whether they're designed for detail or not. So we're going to go into a little bit of what's actually the difference. The nozzle size on neither of these brushes is 0.2 or 0.3. Widely said that the 0.3 is actually does a better job at getting fine details than the 0.2, and I don't necessarily agree with that. I think there's some misconceptions surrounding that. And when that's said, I think there are some things that you need to look at and what a detail brush is supposed to do for you. It is true that it is probably easier to use the 0.3 to get a straight line, a nice, straight, crisp, thin line, than it is to do it with the 0.2. And that seems counterintuitive, but as we get more into this, I think you'll understand why that. At first blush, looking at these nozzles, you're going to see that they look very, very similar. To the naked eye at first glance, they look like they're exactly the same nozzle, and they are the same length, and they both have the same bore dimension. But I don't have a set of pin gauges here, but I do have a couple of pins that I know the size of. And so I'm going to show you, if I drop both of them nozzles, both of them will fit over what is known to be a 0.35 diameter needle, and both of them will slide on that. The next size needle I have is a 0.4. Neither one of them will slide on that. I believe the official size for these nozzles is 0.37, and they are exactly the same. However, if you look at the nozzles from the top down, you'll notice that the air chambers are different. The air chambers in the 0.2 version of this brush is cut shallower to allow less air to get to the front of the brush, and to not push air as quickly to the front of the brush, creating a very much softer feel. In addition, and we don't really even have to measure this, we can look at the air cap. And if you look at the air caps, you will be able to easily see that the air cap for the 0.2 is much smaller than the air cap for the 0.3. So the effect of that is further reducing the airspeed, air velocity coming out of the airbrush. My friend over at the art workshop should probably pick one of these up because he loves a very low air pressure airbrush. Even the needle taper and the needle are the same. Why do they offer two different needles for this brush, or supposedly two different needles? I have no idea, but you can clearly see that they are cut back to the same length. Both of the needle shafts are the same diameter. So if they're cut back to the same length and a straight taper, which they are, then you're going to have the exact same needle. If there is any difference in it, nobody's been able to find it. I know people who have equipment that do this. Dave G, I know, has looked at these, told me the same thing. The needle is the same. So what we are doing, it's restricting that airflow and forcing it to come out in a tighter pattern is where it can make a difference. So as you can get further away from your piece at the same dot size with the 0.2 than you can with the 0.3. And in cases and places where you have to worry about bounce back, so it's become where some of the people who've tried doing fine lines have realized they're having a little bit of issue with that. But part of that issue is they'll be running at about 19 psi, and if you're running 19 psi with the 0.3 brush, it works perfectly fine. If you try to drop down to like 10 psi like you would with some other detail brushes, that 10 psi combined with how much restriction they have in the airflow in this airbrush, it will not atomize and break up the paint well enough at that airspeed, because you have really low pressure coming in and it's restricted even more as it's coming out. So to get good performance out of that, you actually have to bump that back up and be running about 25 psi. And some people aren't going to like that. Here's the good news, and if you already have a 0.2, here's the good news. You can simply take the air cap off your 0.3 and drop it straight onto your 0.2 and have higher airspeed. You can also take a nozzle from the 0.3 and put it on a 0.2 and make it a complete 0.3 brush. Or you can mix and match, because the nozzles and the bore sizes of the nozzle are the exact dimensions. As far as gentle shading and blending, the 0.2 is an amazing brush at that. Anyway, guys, that is about all we're going to talk about today. This is not a review video. It's not intended to be a review video. I'm Bill Kennedy with the Airspace, and I hope you guys get a little something out of it. And maybe that makes sense for you, and you can make a decision if you're looking at these two airbrushes.